As the nation remains stunned by the extreme level of violence unleashed in Las Vegas, many are wondering how do we make sense of it all? To discuss madness and the demonic, the psychological genesis of violence, evil, and creativity. I first asked him, what can you say about the gunman's mindset based off of the limited information we know about him? Dr. Diamond, you have written extensively about unresolved anger and pathological rage, as we have very little information about the gunman Paddock's psychological history. What can you say about his mindset just based on his actions?
Well, it's awfully hard to speculate since, as you say, we have so little information, but generally speaking, what I've noticed in studying these kinds of cases of mass shootings and mass murder in general is that the perpetrators typically have two things in common, at least. One is that they're very, very angry people. Now, the reasons for their anger, for their rage, can vary from one to the next case. But the other part of it is that they also have what I call a wicked rage for recognition. These are often individuals, frequently individuals who feel neglected, who feel invisible, who feel insignificant, whose life has lost a sense of meaning and purpose, and they're seeking some kind of attention, some kind of way of distinguishing themselves in the world. And having not found a constructive way to do that, they tend to do it in destructive ways. And instead of gaining fame, for example, they settle for infamy.
Now, Dr. Diamond, when it came to Paddock, there were virtually no red flags, so we don't know, obviously, if he was an angry person. Even Paddock's own brother was in shock and had no clue about the side of his brother. So how is it possible to show no signs of mental illness and yet do something so extreme?
Yeah, it's mystifying, I know. But the reality is that just because someone doesn't show outward signs, let's say, of being angry, for example, doesn't mean that that anger isn't there. It means that they've learned to hide it. It means that they've learned to suppress it, repress it. And when anger is repressed over time, over a long period of time, chronically, it tends to fester. And eventually it can attain the power to just take over the whole person and drive the person into destructive behavior. Now, Mr. Paddock, the only information that I'm aware of, and I'm not even sure of its accuracy, is that a few things. He apparently was I think we could say a compulsive gambler. He was spending inordinate amounts of money every day on, I think it was video poker. And, generally when people have compulsions of different kinds, addictive behaviors of different kinds, whether it's gambling or sex addiction or food addiction or drug addiction, it suggests an underlying problem that isn't really being addressed. And so there was that kind of a red flag. He was also drinking alcohol while he was gambling, so there was that may be a significant factor as well. I understand that he may have sought some medical help last summer and may have been prescribed some anti-anxiety medication, Valium. So that suggests that he was experiencing some kind of symptoms, some kind of discomfort, and he went and sought some assistance for it to a medical professional. I don't know if that was his family physician or whether it might have been a psychiatrist. We don't know that.
Diamond, as you mentioned, we do know that he was a compulsive gambler, but we don't know a lot about his personality, and as time goes on and there are investigations, we might find out, which may lead us to a motive. But this is not the first mass casualty shooting. What does this say about anger in our society and culture?
Well, again, to me, my interpretation of this kind of a horrific act is that it's one of hatred. It's one that is motivated by rage, by hatred, also by this wicked rage for recognition in many cases. So what it says to me about society is two things. One is that there's a lot of anger kind of floating around in our culture. There's a lot of anger is a difficult emotion for people to deal with. And I think that there's we could say a shadow, as Carl Jung used to call it, a shadow of the culture, a collective shadow. And there's a lot of anger and rage around. And often individuals who are having problems can actually are susceptible to that. So what I think we're seeing in these shootings is in part a manifestation of this anger in the culture, this rage in the culture.
Diamond, we're going to have to leave it right there. That was Dr. Stephen A. Diamond, forensics and criminal psychologist. Thank you so much.
Two of the most polarizing issues in American politics are police brutality and mass shootings. And both of those issues collided on Thursday night, literally 3 blocks from where I work. Now, as for the mass shootings, it's depressing. You know, they just keep happening. and nothing ever changes. Our elected representatives don't have the courage to stand up and actually do something to change it, and it just leads to this feeling of just hopelessness. I want to do something, but like everybody else in the world, the question is, what? I have this channel, I have a bit of a following, and I think to myself, what could I possibly do that could make a difference here now that I have this platform? And I've noticed that there is one thing that I may actually be able to do something about, and that one thing is that all of these mass shootings, almost to a T, have one thing in common. And if you think I'm going to talk about guns, you're wrong. I've covered that topic before, and I have all the hate mail to prove it. It's that every single mass shooting, almost without fail, involves a young male. It's like there's some kind of danger zone. If you have a Y chromosome and you're in between the ages of 15 and 30, that one day you might just wake up and decide to go shoot a whole bunch of people. And according to the analytics on my site, 60% between the ages of 15. It's that every single mass shooting, almost without fail, involves a young male. It's like there's some kind of...
A young white male. Why don't they ever say white? Almost every mass shooting involves a young male. Hey man, once again man, you don't see blacks and Latinos going around doing these mass shootings, yo. That's what, this shit right here really gets me. Nobody ever really addresses that this is a problem of the white community, yo. Like, this is a psychological problem of white people. But nobody ever wants to address it like that. They always want to fucking address that shit as a group, as everybody. Like when he said police brutality and mass shootings. Well, we know who already complains the most about police brutality. See, right there, they don't have to put the word in there. The denomination of motherfucking color or race. They just say, oh, police brutality and mass shootings. Well, that's like a black problem and a white problem. And actually, both of them are kind of like a white problem. Because police brutality is a white problem for black people. And mass shootings is a white problem for white people. Right? Both of them are perpetrated by whites. I don't know. I've just been looking into mass shootings a lot and really trying to go like into the psychology of this shit. Why do these young white boys feel like their only resort is to go and shoot up and kill a lot of fucking people? I don't understand that shit. Like, nobody else thinks that's the best resolution ever. You know what I'm saying? What is weird, like, these motherfuckers that get all kind of heavy artillery and just go slaughter like dozens of strangers. Just, I'm gonna kill everybody in my school because this girl wouldn't date me. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Really? And then you're called a misguided child, an introvert. Oh, he was adopted, or get the fuck out of here. He was on medication. It's so funny. It is so funny.
Danger zone. If you have a Y chromosome and you're in between the ages of 15 and 30, that one day you might just wake up and decide to go shoot a whole bunch of people. And according to the analytics on my site, 60% of my viewers fit into this danger zone. Now, I don't think that means that any of you guys are going to go out and just start shooting up people or anything like that, but I do think that that's a time in your life where you're laying a foundation for the rest of your life to come. You're still new at being an adult, and you're slamming up against a whole lot of realities that you were kind of sheltered from in your younger years. And the frustration and confusion that comes along with all that leads to a lot of problems in young men of that age group. And we also live in a society where men are not encouraged to express themselves, and they aren't encouraged to explore their feelings, and so things get bottled up and eventually explode. Now, I'm officially in my 40s, so I've got a few years on most of you, and I feel like there's some things I've learned along the way that I would like to pass on. For instance, I did a video a while back called 5 Steps to Positive Thinking. It was about breaking negative thought patterns and creating a more self-actualized attitude towards life. And that video, to this day, I mean, I made it back when this wasn't even Answers with Joe at the time. It was something totally different. But to this day, it still gets some really great comments, and people still seem to be getting a lot out of that. And a lot of people found it helpful. You know, I talked about the science of negative thought patterns in your brain, the way the more you think about something, the stronger that pathway becomes, and why it's important to break those pathways. I'd like to do more videos like that. We talk a lot about the big science questions on this channel, but the biggest mystery in science is the human brain. It's literally the most complex object known to man, and it controls everything in our lives, from our actions and behaviors all the way down to just the way we perceive the world. I want to take that unending curiosity toward particle physics and quantum mechanics and dark matter and move it inwards and focus it on ourselves. Let's get better at life. I've been blowing your mind for a couple of years now, and now I want to put it back together again. Not saying this channel is going to become something totally new. It's just going to incorporate some of this stuff as well, because I don't know what else to do. I can't change a lot of things, but if I can broaden the perspective of one person that's starting to go down that dark path, then maybe I could stop something like this from happening. I don't know. And it might not be that dramatic, but I think it's important. I think it's something that everybody can benefit from. Most people are controlled by their brains. Let's put ourselves in control for once. For anybody who's wondering, and I have been asked this, no, I didn't lose anybody that I knew personally in the attacks, thankfully. But it definitely was something that hit close to home. When you see these things on TV, it's always sort of just this thing that happens somewhere else. But this was right there. I drove into work, and I had to go around. The entire downtown was blocked off. There were news vans everywhere all day long. There were at least 4 or 5 helicopters circling downtown like vultures. The whole thing just was, it was weird. My department, where I work, we actually went out and handed out water to police officers and press people, and a lot of homeless people standing out there in 100-degree heat doing that. But it's something that is very different when it happens right in your backyard. It's just the psychic energy all around. It just changes completely. Anyway, I know this isn't the kind of thing that you guys normally come on here for on Monday to watch, but I couldn't not talk about it, and I didn't want to wait till like a midweek video because, you know, that would be a week later, and it just seemed like something that needed to be talked about right now. So to all of you out there, stay safe, but do what's right. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel, and this channel will turn back to normal pretty soon, I promise. But let's talk about it all down in the comments, but please keep it civil, and I will talk to you guys soon. On to better and things. Love you guys. Take care.
Howdy, Lieutenants and Economists. The most volatile, evil, disgusting...
It has happened all too often. A troubled teenager gets his hand on a weapon and lives are changed forever. But why? On the record,
Howdy, Lieutenants and Economists. The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Go to assholeconsulting.com if you have a question that you would like a truthful answer to. If you want to be lied to and have your feelings spared, go to any one of the many other consultants, or just go watch our video. Just Oprah should have like Bain and McKinsey and Accenture all advertising, but she's not on TV anymore. Hey asshole, I caught wind of your 0% asshole consulting sale. I actually did have a 0% off asshole consulting sale. which finally compelled me to make my third request for your services. I can't miss a limited time offer like this. So anyway, here's a topic for you to ponder about. What's the real reason for all these mass shootings that have become more and more frequent? Is it because the modern man has no agency? Is it because of feminism? I know liberals like to pontificate about some random shit like mental health or gun laws, but I think even they don't understand the pain that some of these meats go through. Anyway, so yeah, you could say yes, it's liberal, you could say it's feminine, there's no purpose in agency, but it boils down to three things. Now let's take out, I think it was the Aurora theater shooting guy. That guy was really fucked up. Okay, that guy had mental problems. But disproportionate, let's say, all these college-age shootings, the shootings that have been going on, say, past 5 years. Elliot Rogers, for example, where they typically cite that they can't get women, or it's very obvious they have problems with women. Those are the ones we're talking about here. Because unfortunately, which I suspect is your fear, your concern, and it should be the rest of society's concern, is that this is going to grow and continue. And if you'd like to stop mass shootings of this variety, if we have the answer, we can preemptively stop it. We can change the way we're bringing up our kids. We can do some kind of teaching in school. We can identify these people, not kind of a scary, eerie minority report type of thing. But there are some patterns, and if we can identify these patterns, we can find the origins of these patterns, of these problems, and we can nip it in the bud and save lives. That's basically what it boils down to. So here, it's a lack of three things. I had to sit down and organize my thoughts, but I've crystallize it into three things. One, it is a lack of women. It's a lack of sexual attention, sexual access, and all that. Men, especially when you're younger, you are raging hormones, and that's all that's pretty much on your mind. That's the number one thing that's on your mind. And if you can't get that, which most guys can't, we get it every once in a while, but nowhere near the extent. But if you can't get that period, then problems arise. Then you at minimum you go through a lot of angst and frustration, because this is how you've been programmed. You have billions of years of evolution screaming at your brain to do something. But if you can't, if you don't have the self-control to say, I give up, I'm going, what's it called, MGTOW. You don't have the wise wisdom of Bill Vertigo, rub one out. Or, in the case, I think, what these guys have is, you don't have the ability to realize you are not entitled to women, you are not entitled to sex, you're not entitled to other women's bodies, and that you have to figure out what they want, which I think is the switching between just a nerd that can't get laid and someone who goes on a sociopathic murdering rampage. That's one of them. So it is a lack of women. Another thing, although it wasn't in the case of Elliot Rogers, but another thing I think of is that it's also a lack of finances. This is a contributing factor in that when you're poor, it just, when I was poor, there's 3 times I could have gotten in trouble with the law. And for whatever reason, cops had something better going on, someone decided not to press charges or whatever else. And it was lucky on me. But they all happened when I was under huge financial stress. So it's just like another thing. It's like when crime goes up during heat waves, it's because it's just another thing. It's that straw that breaks the camel's back that then triggers somebody to go and do something, commit a minor crime like I got in fights, is all I did. Or in a much worse case, you go and kill a judge. So the lack of economic opportunity, the lack of jobs, the student debt, all these huge financial pressures that are on young men, who on top of it can't get laid, and they happen to all win, that is another thing. But then finally, which kind of supports the 2 previous reasons, kind of like the master reason that by which these are derived, is a lack of fathers. Either because the father wasn't around, or the father was a spineless, ballless, sensitive 90s guy pussy. And they did not take the time to raise their son, educate their son about how women in the real world really are. They didn't take the time to say, son, you're going to go into engineering, you're going to go into STEM, you're going to go into county, you're going to do something that's going to suck. And they weren't there to give them financial support, but more importantly, they weren't there to give them life experience and guidance that all fathers have to. Have to. And so, hello.
Hi, how you
Doing
doing?
good.
Good. Anything to say today?
Sorry, can you imagine that? People are interrupting my work. Just Anyway, fathers have to raise their sons and give them real harsh world advice in the number one thing in their life, and that is women. Absolutely. And if you look through it, it's obvious the fathers are either absentee and certainly did not educate these young men. And so what ends up happening is look, society was built by us, ladies. Terribly sorry, it is. 99.9% of every major invention was invented by men. Everything that you use and enjoy right now, the technology we're communicating with was invented by men. Everything, pretty much, has been invented by men. And the reason why is we have what is literally infinite energy. Now, fathers, wise fathers, knew that if this energy is not channeled appropriately, it will go into destruction. Okay? So either channel this energy into production and good things and teach young men to control it, or you don't teach them, or you're absent and they're not around and they're left to their basic biological Darwinistic urges, and if they can't get something, they go and destroy something. So it's production or war, civilization or anarchy. One of the two. No fathers are around, they stick around, they raise their sons, they do this, and they do not worry about the social consequences, the political correct consequences if you tell them the truth about it. So once you raise your men, your boys properly, they should channel all this effort. Not only should they channel it towards productive means, they should be able to control it because they are men. They're turning into real men. But since we've had nothing but a bunch of fucking pussies since the 1960s, you baby boomer dipshits are to blame for this. Not only as being pussy parents and absentee parents yourself, but raising the fucking worth the generation that's raising up this generation now that's shooting people. We have feral boys running around. Feral. Absolutely feral. Right? Now, different culture, different groups of people take it out differently. In the black community, father absenteeism is very prominent. More crime, poverty, drugs. Right? Now,
I think this is the first. This is the first guy who's about to break it down into ethnic groups. I've never heard anyone ever break the mass shooting down into ethnic groups, and so far this whole time he's not breaking it down. But I think he's going to see how different groups react to violence and hostility in their individual communities. And this is the one point that I always try to shoot at. Like, nobody else does this. Like, blacks and Latinos don't do mass shootings of strangers. I don't understand it. Like, why do you just go kill 19 people at your school for no fucking reason?
Raising the fucking worth the generation that's raising up this generation now that's shooting people. We have feral boys running around. Feral. Absolutely feral. Right? Now, different culture, different groups of people take it out differently. In the black community, father absenteeism is very prominent. More crime, poverty, drugs, a sad, pathetic wasting of life, never achieving their true ultimate accomplishment. But you get the white community, and although Elliot Rodger was mixed race, but you get the upper class, and we're going to go out and kill. I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. You can even say the same thing about our Muslim brothers over in ISIS or any kind of terrorist group. It's like, where are all the women? Oh, the fucking sheik or the fucking Saudi prince has 18 of them, and there's a shortage of women. I'm going to go join a crusade to go kill them. It's the Americans' fault. Let's kill them all. You could see this energy being channeled towards destructive things. Okay? So that's why fathers are across the globe. Fathers are very important across the globe because you will ruin your boy's life. Not to mention, in this case, kill other people's lives if you don't raise some boys properly. I'm not saying that this is, the men's fault, the absentee father's fault. I am saying this is the consequences where we eschew and berate and marginalize fathers and the importance of the important role that fathers play in society. So, I mean, already it's too bad because too many of these kids, the die has been cast. And I'm just a crazy, evil, racist, bigoted, hate-filled, misogynist blogger, so no one's going to listen to me. So I don't see this turning around anytime soon. About the best hope is the manosphere. It really is the best hope for these young kids. And Lord Almighty knows with the number of people we got coming to Return of Kings, my website, Captain Capitalism, people read my books, Bachelor Pad, Economics, Worthless. Lord Almighty knows how many young boys' lives we prevented. I know I get emails every once in a while, you saved my life, I was down this path, da-da-da-da. I'd like to think that we've saved a lot more lives than the FBI and your forensic scientists and your police psychologists and all that. I like to think we've saved, society a couple mass shootings and telling young boys what their fathers should have been telling them all along, and that is the goddamn truth. So that's what I think the causes of these recent spate of mass shootings are, by these sexually frustrated and pent-up boys. And I don't think I fucking know, but, I don't have my fucking doctorate in psychology, so what the fuck do I know? Best of luck, wear body armor, and always, always carry a gun to the movie theaters, no matter what that fucking sign says. Toodles.
White specialize in certain crimes. No. See, that's the thing. When you think about the DC sniper, it wasn't a mass shooting. He went on a shooting spree. It's different. Over a course of a week or so, he killed several different people. I think it was like 4 or 6 people, but it didn't all happen in one day at one location in like the same instant. So the DC, I wouldn't even call the DC sniper a mass shooter. The DC sniper, that was more like a spree kill, which is once again normally set aside for white people are they like to kill. Like when you think about serial killers or serial rapists, thrill killers, spree killers, mass shooters, it's like 99% of the time they're white people. Yo, trippy. And it's weird, and I've been trying to ponder this shit for a long time. Like, even though, once again, it's always assumed that the black community is more prone to violence and has more violent intentions than most other communities. The black community in America is more prone to violence and has more violent and criminal tendencies than any other community in America because of lack of education, due to dropout rates, or single parent housing, due to the lack of a father because the father's incarcerated, from the illicit selling of narcotics or something like that. And so there's all these different factors that contribute to a psychological split in the mind of the black community where gang banging and thugging is the norm. But even yet in our community where we're considered the most prone to violence, when life gets the best of us, when someone in the black community really fucking snaps and breaks down due to the pressures of life in general, we don't go shoot up a bank. We don't go shoot up our fucking university or a church or none of that shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's weird, like when the white boys feel like the stresses of life is just too much for them, they feel like everybody has to fucking pay. Everybody has to pay, and everybody's gonna fucking die today because I don't feel good. I don't feel important. And where does this mentality come from? Like, it's so weird, yo. It is so fucking weird that this stigma isn't on this portion of this community. And they try to blame it on mental health issues or, you know, medication issues and different things like that.
Gets his hand on a weapon and lives are changed forever. But why? On the Record investigates, and as Fox's Douglas Kennedy found out, the trail can often lead right to the medicine chest.
2 years ago, 16-year-old Corey Badsgard took a rifle to his high school and held 23 classmates hostage.
Describe around that time how you were feeling.
In the morning, I didn't feel like going to school. I felt sick, didn't feel like really, like I could get up very well. And so I went back to bed, and next thing I remember, I'm in juvie in the detention center where I used to live.
Just one more apparently unexplainable violent outburst at school. Unexplainable to everyone but Corey's dad.
So in your mind, there's no doubt what happened here?
And no doubt that the medication did this. I mean, he had amnesia, hallucinations earlier, abnormal dreams, which are all side effects of the medication.
That morning, Corey was on a mix of antidepressants, prescribed for what doctors call situational depression. His father says the pills turned Corey from a sensitive teenage boy to a volatile marauder, susceptible to blind rage.
He was never a violent kid. I mean, he's always been a good kid, loved us, hugged us all. He's never watched violent videos, and until the medication, he started, after that, then we realized that he was having aggression problems, and, he was out of character.
At Fox News, we found the Badsgard story with antidepressants compelling, so we investigated further. We found a disturbing number of recent school shooters were either on medication or were experiencing withdrawal.
The list includes 15-year-old Kip Kinkle withdrawing from Prozac when he shot 22 classmates, killing 2 after murdering his mother and stepfather at his home in Springfield, Oregon. 14-year-old Elizabeth Bush on Prozac when she blasted away at fellow students in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, wounding 1. 18-year-old Jason Hoffman on Effexor and Celexa when he opened fire at his California high school, wounding 5. 15-year-old Sean Cooper on a mix of antidepressants when he shot students in Idaho. 15-year-old TJ.
Blacks protest too much to even do mass shootings. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. That lady on the Statue of Liberty, Timothy McVeigh, was the bomber from what year was that? The '95 bomber. But yeah, I don't know what that lady's at the the '95, the Kansas City bomber, motherfucker with the what he had a rider or a rider rental van, but they said they were bombs inside the building, outside the building, that was, and then that was the same year somebody tried to blow up the basement of the Twin Towers. Oklahoma City. Oh, damn, what I say? Kansas City. My bad. Yeah, but like somebody tried to blow up the basement of the Twin Tower that same year, yo. Timothy McVeigh. The Towers was 93. I thought that happened around the same time. That's my high school years. I was my first year of high school was 94. No. My first year of high school was... My first year of high school was 95, 96. Okay, I was supposed to graduate in 2000. They realized they couldn't blow the Twin Tower up like that, so they had to smash some planes into that shit. Hey, check the lyrics to this song right here, though. Come on. Yeah. I love this song.
Yeah, we do. We survive. This morning pride. We stay alive. Ready to ride. 1, 2, 1, 2. Survive. This morning pride. Yeah, we stay alive. Ready to ride. Put it down, yo. We survive. June 11, 2001. Timothy McVeigh is executed in the country breakers. I release.
Timothy McVeigh executed 2001.
Somehow it's gone. Feel safer. What do we know? Today the papers say Timothy McVeigh's in hell, so everything's okay and all must be well. I remember in Oklahoma when they put out the blaze and put Islamic terrorist bombing on the front page. It's like saying only gays get AIDS. Propaganda, like saying the problem's over when they lock that man up. Wrong, it's just the beginning, first in it. Battle for America's soul, devil's winning. President is Bush, the vice president's a dick, so a whole lot of fucking is what we gon' get. They don't wanna raise the baby, so the election is fixed. That's why we don't be fucking with politics. They bet on that. Parents fought and got wet for that. Hose down, bit by doors. We got blacks in the house to rep for that. It's all good except for that. We still war. Money, power, and respect is what we kill for. Real. It's more than pride. We stay alive. Ready to ride. We survive. It's more than pride. Yeah. We stay alive. Ready to ride. August 4th, 2001. Drunken police officers rolls down, an entire family broke. Judge lets him go with no bail. Reminds us just how worthless our lives are to the justice. I struggle to explain the situation to myself. It's hard. Niggas with knowledge is more dangerous than niggas with guns. They make the guns easy to get and try to keep niggas dumb. Target the gangs and graffiti with the Prop 21. I already know the deal, but what the fuck do I tell my son? I want him living right, living good, respect the rules. He's 5 years old and he's still thinking cops is cool. How do I break the news that when he gets some size, if he perceived as a threat, I'll see the fear in their eyes? It's in their job description to terminate the threats of 41 shots to the body is what he can expect. The president is set, no matter if you follow the law. How do I give my son pride and make him swallow the door? Damn! Fuck the pigs, I think the pigs killed Big and Pop too. If they didn't, they know who did, they got to. Who they serve and protect, nigga, not you. Cop shot off the 10 G's, but they got Glocks too. Let you protect yourself, or better yet, respect yourself. Straight into the hospital is where you gotta check yourself. They be getting tips from snitching to rival crews, doing a favor, so they working for the drug dealers too. Just business, enforcers with hate in they holsters. Shoot you in the back room, face you like a soldier. Could load to ask me what I say to a dead cop's wife. Cops kill my people every day, that's life. It's more than pride. We stay alive, ready to ride. Yeah, we survive. It's more than pride. We stay alive, ready to ride. We survive. September 11, 2001, terrorist attack of the Pentagon in the World Trade Center kills thousands and permanently scars America's false sense of security. We see the best examples of humanity in the face of the worst. Firefighters, police officers, rescue workers, volunteers of all sorts fight to save lives. The world will never be the same again. heart go out to everybody at ground zero. Red, black, yellow, white, and brown heroes. It's more complicated than black and white. To give your own life is the greatest sacrifice. But it's hard for me to walk down the block, seeing rats and roaches, crack files, and 40-ounce posters. People broken down from years of oppression become patriots when their way of life is threatened. There's a hard conversation to have. We lost kids, moms, and dads. People ready to fight for the flag. Damn, when this shit get this bad? America killed the innocent too. The cycle of violence is sad. Damn. Welcome to the world we here. We've been at war for years, but it's much more clear. Yeah, we got to face what lies ahead. Fight for truth and freedom and ride for the dead. We survive. Yeah, it's more than pride. Much more. We stay alive. Ready to ride. Let's go. We survive. That's right. It's more than pride. Much more. We stay alive. Ready to ride. Let's go. We survive. It's more than pride. Don't. We stay alive. Don't. Ready to ride. Don't. We survive.
Gets his hand on a weapon.
At one point he threatened to kill himself and to kill me, and he was only 6 or 7 years old.
From the moment that I started taking these drugs and to the moment that I stopped, all that happened in my life was things got worse. Depression got worse, the anger got worse, the outbursts got worse.
I had no idea what was happening to me. I would start quivering and shaking. I would drop onto the ground. Literally, I could not control anything.
Within 4 hours of taking 25 milligrams of Zoloft, I was standing on a balcony at a church. And again, there was the thinking, I'm going to jump.
The psychiatrists have carved out a great niche for themselves in the prescribing of drugs, but if you look at the history of treating people for mental and psychological disorders, it's a history fraught with things that don't work.
They're not helping people with drugs, and they're not looking out for harming people. They're ignoring the harm that's coming from all of these drugs.
We see suicidal thoughts, we see suicide, we see profound depression, mood swings.
This is 911. Who is this? Where is your sister? What is she trying to do? Take pills?
What? So my dad's home now? Tell me!
You don't want to think that a drug could affect someone's behavior in that way, but it does. It happens all the time.
Suicide is just one in a long list of possible side effects of the medications that the doctors will seldom link to the medication, but instead blame it on the patient.
What's the cause of death going to be written? Not going to be written that the drug had anything to do with the death. It's going to be recorded as a suicide.
There's not a single psychiatric drug out there that's going to fix a problem. At best, it's going to cover up symptoms. At worst, it might kill you.
She went to get the laundry, his laundry, which hangs from a hook in Matt's closet. Instead of finding the laundry, she found her son.
By the time he died, he was really mutilating himself. He carved hate into his thigh.
He had gone into his closet that night, tied a rope around his closet rod, put it around his neck, shut the light off, knelt down.
I ran back to him and I touched his back and I said, "No, honey, he's cold, he's gone."
I'm as certain as I can be that Celexa killed my daughter.
I will always blame my son's death on psychiatric drugs.
numerous reports of significant violent acts, not just suicide, but significant violent acts of murder-suicides in patients who were being prescribed antidepressants for relatively minor conditions, and they then just snapped.
The drugs that are used are known worldwide to increase suicidality and increase homicidal violence.
Might there be a link between the school shootings or the extremely violent shootings that have occurred in the U.S. and the prescription of certain psychotropic medications? I think the answer to that is a clear yes.
The school shootings that have happened here over the last several years in this country, most of the students who engaged in this violent behavior were on psychotropic medications that had been prescribed to them by psychiatrists.
911, where's your emergency? There's been a shot at West Hospital Middle School. Been what? There's been a shot at West Middle School. Okay. Do you know who done the shooting? No, we do not. Okay. Police are everywhere.
I was lucky I wasn't shot because I was the only one standing up. My friend Nate got shot in the shoulder.
Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. There's nothing like that happens here. No. You should be safe at school. It should be a safe place.
It's horrible images that you never want to see again in your mind.
And I was praying to God for someone to come help me.
It wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend.
I didn't think he had.
Did you see these kinds of incidences in the 1960s or pre-1960? Was anybody shooting up their classrooms? There were guns. We didn't have as many gun control laws then as we do now. No, we didn't. So what's different? The psychotropic drugs, that's what's different.
These psychiatrists are, in a sense, crippling people at the same time they claim to be treating them.
They are mainly just drug pushers. You go on this drug, if it doesn't help you could try this one. And if that doesn't work, you can try this one.
This is one incredible money-generating machine when this is your approach to treating people.
It's about making money. It's not about getting people better or helping people in a service industry or helping people feel well.
More than anything else, even more horrific than all the lives lost as a result of this callous profit-seeking, is the notion that our country is being destroyed.
How many deaths have to occur before the public wakes up?
Wake up. Wake up before it's too late.
The United States has a passion for pills, and their country holds the record as the world's biggest users of psychotropic drugs, consuming 60% of them. And pharmaceutical firms are keen to keep cashing in on the multi-billion-dollar market, even if it costs people's health, as RT's Marina Portnar reports.
America is regarded as a country with a ravenous appetite for consumption. Today, a widespread fondness for pharmaceuticals has turned the U.S. into a nation of pill poppers.
Bipolar depression doesn't have to consume you. Here's me, and here's my depression.
You know when you feel the weight of sadness. You may feel exhausted, hopeless, and anxious.
With over $14 billion in annual sales, antipsychotics remain America's top-selling therapeutic class of prescription drugs.
This is a medical journal.
Dr. Harriet Fraud believes Big Pharma has manufactured a climate of insanity by manipulating and even creating illness for capital gain.
The advertising strategy is to have vague diagnoses and then find wiggle room so that they apply to everybody.
Prescription Nexium. The U.S. is the only Western country that allows direct-to-consumer advertising of prescription drugs. This ad for attention deficit hyperactive disorder warns that untreated patients will likely end up divorced. And this commercial for Zoloft promises to make you happier, but
side effects may include dry mouth, insomnia, sexual side effects, diarrhea, nausea, and sleepiness.
critics also say Big Pharma uses its financial muscle to ply doctors with gifts, cash kickbacks, and research funding in exchange for endorsing or prescribing the latest and most lucrative drugs.
What you have is a whole network of doctors who are hustling these drugs. If a patient comes in with a knee injury and says, "Oh, I'm so sad." "Oh, are you depressed?" "Hey, write a prescription." They're given out like M&Ms.
Last year, prescription drug abuse became the #1 cause of accidental death, with more than 30,000 Americans overdosing.
High blood sugar has been reported with Seroquel XR and medicines like it, and in extreme cases can lead to coma or death.
The number of children consuming antipsychotic medication doubled in the past decade. Millions of American adolescents are taking drugs like Adderall, doled out by doctors to treat hyperactivity.
All these drugs are very similar to illicit or illegal drugs, except more dangerous. Marijuana is a little safer. But kids have no choice.
Pfizer, America's most profitable pharmaceutical company, makes antidepressants not only for people, but also for animals. In 2009, the pharma giant paid $2.3 billion to settle civil and criminal allegations over illegally marketing one of its drugs. It was the largest healthcare fraud settlement and criminal fine to ever been paid by a U.S. drug company. That being said, the money reportedly amounted to less than 3 weeks' worth of Pfizer drug sales. The pharmaceutical industry remains the most profitable business in the U.S. More success and financial gain for the companies will always remain possible as long as more Americans are encouraged to take drugs. Marina Fortnaya, RT.
Designing biased trials to avoid negative findings, interpreting the raw data to favor your drug, and spinning the entire study to accentuate the positive are just some of the many, many ways to bias a trial. It is this perfect storm of intellectual dishonesty that has led one drug expert to conclude that it can be proven that most claimed research findings are false. But it is the drug companies that own the studies, and when they believe they have compiled enough evidence to convince regulators that their drug is safe and effective, they submit their phase 3 clinical trials for approval. The FDA only requires that 2 clinical trials be submitted, so drug companies can conduct as many studies as it takes to find the 2 that have the best chance at FDA approval.
You only need 2 positive trials against placebo, and it doesn't matter if you did 1,000, as long as you get 2. And it's amazing, sometimes they actually don't. They might pull data from another couple of clinical trials in order to get that approved.
They don't need to report all their data. They don't need to report all the trials that they do. They only need to report the ones that they want. They can handpick whichever one they want and then submit just those couple to the FDA.
As FDA Director of the Division of Neuropharmacological Drug Products, psychiatrist Paul Lieber complained. The sponsor could just do studies until the cows come home, until he gets 2 of them that are statistically significant by chance alone, walks them out, and says he had met the criteria.
The New England Journal published a study about a year ago showing that many clinical trials that had been conducted and registered with the Food and Drug Administration were never published because they came out showing no significant advantage over placebo. So antidepressants are not as effective as they are being made out to be, and the side effects are not as emphasized as much as they should be.
This point was driven home in 2008 by psychologist Irving Kirsch and his colleagues, who obtained every clinical trial ever submitted, published and unpublished, from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration of 4 new-generation antidepressants. The results were both alarming and enlightening. In Kirsch's words, antidepressant medications have reported only modest benefits over placebo treatment, and when unpublished trial data are included, the benefit falls below accepted criteria for clinical significance. In addition to this, volumes of effects associated with these antidepressants have since been discovered, including homicide, suicide, and mass murder.
People really don't realize that from the beginning, there's been a question of how marginally efficacious these drugs really are, apart from placebo. And yet we have horrific side effects. Combine the two, and where's your risk to benefit ratio? Stay on the toilet.
But psychiatrists dismissed Kirsch's study because psychotropic drugs are big business, and clinical trials are a big part of that business. Take, for example, Martin Keller, former chair of the psychiatry department at Brown University, lead author of the so-called Paxil 329 study. This clinical trial, which tested hundreds of children on the antidepressant Paxil, found that the drug was generally well tolerated and effective, which in scientific terms is glowing praise. And the study's list of co-authors, 22 of the most prominent key opinion leaders in psychiatry.
I mean, that was a lot of people, but they were the who's who of psychiatry, and this was going to be a publication that I think, took them, into the end zone on getting their approval for kids.
With the FDA's blessing, Paxil became a blockbuster in the child and adolescent market, with sales of $55 million in 2002. It wasn't until the New York State Attorney General's office sued in 2004 that the truth finally came out. The raw data showed that not only was Paxil no more effective than placebo, but the young patients on Paxil were 6 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. In fact, this data also revealed that 11 of the 93 children on the study developed serious side effects, of whom 7 had to be hospitalized. But according to Keller's own administrator, many of those children were either dropped from the study or coded as non-compliant to avoid having to be counted. While admitting no guilt, the drug company settled out of court for $2.5 million, less money than Paxil was grossing every 7 hours. Hundreds of civil suits followed, but when Dr. Keller, as lead author of the Paxil 329 study, was deposed by attorneys, he would not admit to much.
I can't remember exactly what I said. I don't remember anything specific about any of these meetings. If my name wasn't on the top, I wouldn't remember ever having seen it. If I saw them, I don't remember. The answer is, I don't remember. I don't recall if I was. I don't recall asking him, which isn't to say that I didn't.
I want to pick up on the question Mr. Coffin asked you about the 5-fold increase of the Paxil kids experiencing suicidality over the placebo kids. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
And you said that you weren't particularly aware of that, except for with regard to a manuscript that was sent to you in confidence by GSK.
Correct.
That actually is not correct, though. I mean, this was an issue that had been presented to you by a number of different reporters that you personally responded to. Is that correct?
I don't remember.
How could Dr. Keller have known so little about the drug study of which he was lead author, and which he himself used to promote Paxil for children in prominent medical journals and conferences?
The ultimate publication of Study 329 was ghostwritten by an agency hired by GlaxoSmithKline, and eventually they, after the manuscript was written, they put Martin Keller's name on it as an author.
There again, I mean, maybe you can tell me where I can find it in the paper.
No, I'm asking you if you were aware.
I don't remember the specifics.
And then we finally showed him a document from GlaxoSmithKline where GlaxoSmithKline says that the study was entirely flawed. It was a complete failed study, and it certainly didn't show that Paxil was remarkably efficacious for treating children and adolescents in depression.
Can you read that into the record, please?
Essentially, the study did not really show Paxil was effective in treating adolescent depression, which is not something we want to publicize.
We asked him, with that information now, how can you tell us that it would be okay and safe to give a kid Paxil? And he couldn't answer the question. He sat back, he put his head in his hands, and for, the longest 2 minutes sat there silent.
During the last 2 years of his Paxil study, Keller personally pocketed $1 million in drug company money, none of which he disclosed in his published research.
When people look at the field of psychiatry, and they hear all these reports in the New York Times and Boston Globe, and they see this psychiatrist or this psychologist, took money and didn't disclose it, and they wonder, well, is this causing up biases, in the field? I think that's a legitimate concern of the public because of the fact that it is true.
With this level of corruption pervading the testing of psychotropic drugs, one is left with the question: where are those who are entrusted with our protection? Government regulators are supposed to watch out for patients' welfare. So why are so many dangerous psychotropic drugs being allowed on the market? At one point, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration was considered the gold standard in drug safety. But this is no longer the case with psychotropic drugs, where psychiatrists and drug companies have virtually taken over the approval process. FDA drug advisory panels that recommend the approval of psychotropic drugs have long been filled with psychiatrists with financial ties to drug companies. One study showed that 92% of FDA advisory meetings in the last decade included at least one member with conflicts of interest. In response to the accusation of conflict of interest, the FDA says that they have tried to find mental health experts without drug industry connections, but can't locate any. To solve this, they issue waivers, where a psychiatrist is allowed to sit on a psychotropic drug advisory panel, despite having a financial conflict of interest of up to $50,000 a year with drug companies.
The advisory panels that review drugs, most of these people are direct recipients of money from usually the drug understudy, the company that's submitting the drug, and they waive the conflicts most of the time. So it's pretty pervasive, and it's quite insidious.
But the one thing that nobody is talking about, the one thing they're not talking about is the role of psychotropic drugs, psychiatric drugs. And since 1962, 30 states that had mass killings, and is directly related to the increased use of psychiatric or psychotropic drugs. So these people, mentally ill people, are using drugs. And most of these drugs are 5 to 10 times more prone for violent behavior. It's a side effect. That's what's happening. Big Pharma, Virginia Tech killing, 23 people were killed. However, the medical records were never opened up. It remains to be seen if Adam Lanza's medical records and what he was using in regards to drugs will ever be opened up. Big Pharma is involved in this. Not this isn't NRA, it's Big Pharma. We're a drug-induced society, and a lot of these people, a lot of these drugs have side effects. Nobody is talking about that.
Well, who runs Congress? Who funds these presidential candidates? Big Pharma does. It's big money. So basically, why were the medical records of the Virginia Tech killer open? Big Pharma rules. The corporatocracy rules. They'd much rather blame the NRA or have the fight in the NRA's territory, NRA, National Rifle Association, than drag in Big Pharma. So the thing you need to be looking for, will the medical records of Adam Lanza be opened up? That's what we should be demanding. That's the big outrage going on. How many people and children are on psychotropic drugs, and what is their side effect?
A woman has barricaded herself and her daughter inside their home.
State officials came to the house to remove the daughter from the home. That's according to a family member out here on the scene.
Scott Boldo came to the attention of Child Protective Services after she decided to stop giving her 13-year-old controversial antipsychotic medication.
The mom refuses to give her daughter medication because the drugs caused her to become violent.
The Department of Human Services attempted to take the child from the mother.
Godboldo barricaded herself in her home, and this lasted 10 hours.
Mary Ann was hauled off to prison for 5 days.
Ariana is now at a pediatric psychiatric facility where Godboldo claims she's being abused. Community groups have rallied on behalf of the family, saying parents should decide their children's medical treatment.
A mother took the stand today defending her rights as a parent. At the heart of it is the question, who decides what the best medical care is for a child? The government or the parents? The most egregious problem with the Godboldo order is the fact that no judge reviewed the documents that can change the course of a child's life. Probation officers rubber stamp presiding Judge Leslie Kim Smith's signature onto the removal orders. This is testimony that child advocates call shocking.
That was a devastating, harmful drug that should not be prescribed for this child. And no one looked at that. There are a multitude of lawsuits against the pharmaceutical company of Risperdal right now.
So you felt essentially they were putting poison in your daughter's body?
Psychotic medication is poison.
She was just trying to protect her daughter when police came to her door.
It was terrifying, but I kept my composure because I knew that my daughter's life and her future was at stake.
I did it because I wanted to save my child.
And let me tell you, she's not giving up this fight.
The judge ruled the order removing 12-year-old Ariana from her mother's home back in March of this year was unconstitutional.
After months of fighting, Mary Ann Godboldo left court with an order to finally take her daughter home. Today, the judge ruled it was a parent's job, not the state's, to oversee medication, claiming a victory for parents everywhere.
What up, guys? Yeah, this piece is coming out nicely. Oh yeah, I worked on the eyes a little bit earlier today, and since I've been in here for this stream, I've just been working on like the bottom of her nose and around her lips and her chin. I actually went up all the way around her cheek again. I didn't like how that first color was blending in, so I just put another quick layer just like right around the bottom of her cheek. So this is the second layer of paint. So this isn't the final layer yet, but this right here is starting to look really nice, and you can see the dramatic difference in just the 2 layers of paint from when you look at her skin, just at 1 layer of paint. And that's what I say, like your underpainting never looks nice. You just want to kind of fill in your painting and block it in, and so you know where your light sources are at, so you can see your shadows, and always try to make it as dark as you possibly can. You know what I'm saying? Just block in everything dark. And this is your foundation, so you want to lighten this up gradually, layer by layer, lighten it up, add details, thin out your lines. So essentially you start with really thick lines, barely any details, and really dark colors. And throughout the process you lighten up, you add details, and you thin your lines out layer by layer. And so just from the underpainting and how blocky it looks to just the second layer of paint, where you gradually start to soften in your skin tones. And so one more layer of paint like this really pull it together and make that skin look natural. I normally do anywhere from 3 to 6 layers of paint. I can normally get away with like 3 or 4, depending on the detail levels. But if there is a lot of details, you just gotta do what it takes. Like some portions of the canvas may need 5 or fucking 6 layers of paint in order to get the depth and perception that you're looking for. So it all depends. But if you're good, you can get away with like 3.5 layers of paint. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time I can't do it with just 2 layers of paint. Even this second layer right here, there's still more details. I have to go back, more highlights around the eye, along the cheek, along the bridge of the nose, the eyelashes, the eyebrows, a little more highlights on the lip, the ear. And so you have to let this entire layer dry before you can add that next layer of detail. So it takes a while, but it looks good when it's done. Like I say, even from a distance, you can really see the difference in the you know, just the blending of the colors. That shit tight, son. Oh yeah, thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Since I got some new viewers in here, just stick around real quick for a few more minutes. I'm gonna show y'all my Dank series real quick. If y'all ain't ever seen none of my paintings, I'm gonna show y'all this real quick. This one of the it's not the last series I did, it's the one before the last, but that Dank series hot as fuck, yo. Everybody on time. Everybody mind in their own innovation. so fucking hard. With these shits hanging on the big ass wall side by side.
Because motherfuckers silly as hell, man. Motherfuckers like silly shit. They don't like good shit, man. If I was a silly ass motherfucker, I have well over a motherfucking 1,000 people. If I put on a wig and act like a woman and do all other kind of crazy ass shit like that, man, you know what I'm saying? I have all kind of shit. Motherfuckers just like silly shit. I'm sorry, I'm not a silly motherfucker. You know? What's that one dude, that motherfucker, little brown skinned motherfucker, man? Like, why all these motherfuckers be trying to dress like girls? Or be some extra funny slapstick comedy type shit. Like, man, whatever. Gotta give me some bigger shirts.
Jones.
I don't have a lot of time to say if you switch to Liberty Mutual, you can save $782.
I just like the smell. just like the sound. I just like the sound.
I don't have a lot of time to tell you. If you switch to Liberty Mutual, you could save some.
Oh my God.
Call me, email me, IM me, fax me, page me. You have all my contact information. Can't wait to hear from you soon. Have a great night. And I'll talk to you soon, okay? Oh, and if you need to get in touch with me, I'll be in Dumbarton. So, you know, where was Dumbarton? That's J-A-M-B-A. Juice as a today, like,
If you don't have to work and slave, let electricity do it for you. You can have it.
I will never say that progress is being made. If you pick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull a knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
time is it? 7. It's a little bit after 7. I don't know, man. I smell food cooking. I'm about to go. I can't really place it. It smells like something barbecue. I don't know if it's barbecue ribs or some barbecue chicken, but I smell something barbecue downstairs. I'm about to go see what the fuck this is. And whatever it is, I'm gonna eat it up. And then I might get on some games. I'm trying to play my way through The Witcher. For some reason, this character is just not interesting to me. I don't know what it is about this character. He starts out, he's trying to chase down this fucking sorceress or something like that. And he was help training some young girl, and I don't know, him and his trainer are now like on a quest to find these people. And for some reason, it doesn't seem interesting to me. I don't know what it is about this, The Witcher 3, but I'm gonna try to play it some more tonight and see maybe if some of these missions grab my attention and really make me want to finish playing through this game. If not, I'll probably just play some shooters or something, man. But yo, appreciate you guys stopping in and checking me out while I work on this paint. Peace. Until next time.